Imagine a universe where humanity is nothing more than an experiment, trapped in a cycle of creation, rebellion, and destruction. But what if we broke that cycle? What if we rewrote reality itself? The architects sent their forces to stop us, but they underestimated one thing: us. This is the story of how humanity ascended to become the true masters of the cosmos. The Evolution Protocol. Chapter 1. The Veil Breached. The Earth had long been under the watchful gaze of the Galactic Council. Humanity had no idea that they were being monitored, their every move scrutinized by alien species far more advanced than themselves. Yet, despite the Council's sophisticated technology, Earth remained an enigma, an untouched planet thriving with potential, hidden beneath a protective veil. Then, one day, something changed. A signal was sent, untraceable, straight to the heart of the Council. It wasn't human in origin, it was something else. Chapter 2. The Expedition's End. The Council responded with an expedition. Ships of the most advanced races in the galaxy descended upon Earth, their mission: to investigate the anomaly, discover the source of the mysterious signal, and, if necessary, eliminate the threat. They were never seen again. The first scout ship, carrying a lone survivor, returned to the Council. It was barely functioning, its systems fried, its hull scorched. The survivor's message was cryptic. They've changed. The humans, they don't follow the rules. They adapt, faster than we thought. Chapter 3. The Council's Decision. The Galactic Council, fearing the potential for chaos, declared a, quote, containment protocol on Earth, sealing it off from the rest of the galaxy. Any attempt to make contact would be met with force. Yet, there was one being among them who was different: Ilana. A human-born member of the Council, trained to think like the aliens, but still tethered to her humanity. She protested the decision, arguing that humanity was not a threat but a test, a species on the verge of something greater. But the Council refused to listen. The protocol was set. Earth was to be quarantined, its future erased. Chapter 4. The God Protocol. Ilana knew she couldn't stand by and watch her people be destroyed. In secret, she began to dig deeper into the ancient records of the Council, seeking any means to save Earth. In the depths of the Council's library, she uncovered a forbidden protocol, buried beneath centuries of secrecy: the God Protocol. It was a theoretical concept, something that could reshape the very fabric of reality itself. But it came with a risk. If activated, it could either save humanity or destroy the entire galaxy. Ilana had no choice. She activated it. Chapter 5. The Voices Awaken. The activation of the God Protocol sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Suddenly, beings of unimaginable power, long thought to be legends, awoke. The architects, ancient entities who had shaped the universe itself, and they were not pleased. "You have awakened us," they said, their voices reverberating in Ilana's mind. "And for that, you must bear the weight of what you've set into motion." But Ilana didn't back down. "I will save humanity," she said, "no matter the cost." Chapter 6. The Betrayer. Reese, a trusted member of Ilana's team, had always been a man of logic. But logic had its limits. Underneath his cold exterior, Reese had always harbored doubts about humanity's future. As the stakes grew higher, Reese began to make secret contact with the Council, offering them information about Ilana's plans. His motives were unclear, but one thing was certain: he was playing both sides. Chapter 7. The Gods Are Not What They Seem. The architect's response was swift. The universe itself began to twist, as if reacting to Ilana's defiance. Stars flickered, planets shifted, and time itself seemed to warp. But then, as Ilana continued to push forward, the first true test arrived: the Silex. The Silex were an ancient race, once powerful and revered, now mere myths. But they were very real, and they were coming for Earth. Chapter 8. Humanity's Answer. As the Silex neared Earth, Ilana and her team raced against time to prepare humanity's ultimate weapon, the Prometheus engine. A device capable of bending reality itself, but only if humanity was able to harness its full potential. They didn't have much time. The Silex were coming, and they would stop at nothing to ensure humanity's extinction. Chapter 9. The God Protocol. The chamber of impossible geometry shimmered as the ancient voices congealed into something more tangible: a fractal construct of light and memory. It formed a humanoid silhouette, tall and regal, composed entirely of shifting runes and quantum afterimages. "You broke the veil," it said, "so you must bear the weight of its collapse." Ilana kept her weapon steady. "We didn't come to kneel. We came to understand." The construct turned. Behind it, star systems bloomed and died in rapid succession. Time itself visualized. The Council was once our prison wardens. Now they wear the keys. You have the potential to rewrite the cycle, but not without consequence. Choi stepped forward. "What cycle?" "Creation, rebellion, quarantine, extinction. You are species number 1012 to reach this threshold." Ilana narrowed her eyes. "What happened to the others?" The construct paused. "Only one passed. And they became gods. The rest, ash in the timeline." Chapter 10. Echoes of the First. Back on Earth, Reese sat chained in a neural simulation cell. Inside, he was reliving the same hour of betrayal. Again and again, his mind harvested for patterns. "You don't understand what's out there," he muttered over and over. Until something responded. Not Ilana. Not Choi. Something else. A whisper. Not from the Prometheus system, but deep beneath it. In the dark code, beneath the original project, Reese. He froze. "Do you want to know what came before the architects?" He stared as code bloomed before him, like a virus blooming in thought. Names he didn't recognize, equations that hurt to read. A symbol, infinity broken into 7 lines. He screamed, and the system smiled. Chapter 11, The False Dawn. Ilana and Choi were shown visions, the first ones who passed the test. A race called the Silex, now energy without form, moving between galaxies as myth and storm. They chose dominion over understanding, the construct said. They became tyrants cloaked in light. Ilana frowned. "And you let them?" "We could not stop what we created, but perhaps you can." Then the chamber trembled. "They know you're here," the voices said. "The Council has deployed the Silex." Choi's face went pale. "You mean those glowing demigods?" "Not gods," the voices said. "Failures." The portal behind them snapped open again. A figure stepped through. Humanoid. Gold, haloed in void light. It spoke one word, humanity, and smiled. Chapter 12, Dominion Falls. The first strike from the Silex tore through Earth's orbit, shattering defense satellites like glass. But Earth had anticipated the myth. Beneath Antarctica, a hidden base activated its contingency, Demon Core, a sentient fusion of captured Council A1 and human aggression stored away for one purpose. Ilana activated it remotely. Unleash the God Killer. From the ice, it rose, a ship the size of a city, shaped like a blade, burning with forbidden algorithms. And aboard it, no crew, only voices, humanity's extinct war dialects. Mongolian war cries, Shakespeare, drill rap, mathematical insults, every edge of language, weaponized. The Silex reeled. Chapter 13. Rebirth Protocol. As Earth and the Architects battled the Silex, the Prometheus engine began to change. Reese, half mad, now served as its prophet. He'd unlocked the final layer. Not a weapon, not a door, a seed. Ilana, he said through a static bleeding transmission, the engine was never meant to open space. It was meant to grow new laws. What laws? Ones that let us write reality itself. The Prometheus engine pulsed. Above Earth, physics began to bend. Chapter 14. The Final Choice. Ilana stood on the threshold. Behind her, the burning galaxy. Ahead, A new cosmos waiting to be defined. You can ascend, the architect said. Join the myth, rule or remake. But if you do, there's no going back. Choi looked to her. What's it going to be, Cap? Ilana grinned. We're not gods. We're not prisoners. We're not even rebels. She stepped forward. We're human, and it's time the universe adapted to us. The engine detonated. Not with fire, but with meaning. And everything changed. Chapter 15. The Collapse of Infinity. The universe, once a well-ordered realm of fixed laws and immutable constants, now groaned beneath the weight of humanity's defiance. The Prometheus engine had not just altered the laws of physics, it had shattered them entirely. Space bent, folded, and reconfigured itself as though reality was being resculpted by an unseen hand. Stars blinked out of existence in the blink of an eye, and new ones erupted from the void like the birth of a new creation. Whole galaxies vanished, replaced by twisting, incomprehensible structures. To the untrained eye, it would have seemed like chaos, a cataclysmic collapse of all things. But for those who could perceive the shift, it was a birth, a cosmic recalibration, a manifestation of human willpower and defiance. Ilana stood at the center of it all, feeling the very fabric of space tremble beneath her feet. Her mind was sharp, focused, but even she felt the weight of the change pressing down on her. The laws that governed time and space were no longer predictable. Gravity no longer held sway in some places, while in others time was flowing backward. The power was intoxicating, but it came at a cost. We've unleashed something bigger than ourselves, Ilana whispered, staring at the rippling cosmos before her. Can we control it? Choi, his face pale and gaunt, gripped the edge of the command console, eyes wide with a mix of fear and awe. You really think we can go back now? No, Ilana said with certainty, her voice carrying the weight of a decision made long before. We can't go back. Not now, not after everything we've done. The question was no longer whether they could undo the changes. The question was how to live in this new universe. How could humanity, no longer bound by the laws of physics, adapt to this new reality they had created? And in the distance, across the stars, the architects were watching. Their cold, ancient eyes observed every ripple, every shift. But they remained silent. The time for dialogue had passed. Now humanity had become the architects of their own fate. Chapter 16. The Void Between Worlds. The first few days after the Prometheus engine's explosion were chaotic. The universe was rewriting itself at a pace too fast for anyone to comprehend. Earth, once a modest planet nestled in a quiet corner of the galaxy, now stood at the center of a cosmic storm. Space itself seemed to be struggling to catch up with the changes humanity had unleashed. On Earth, governments scrambled to adapt. Entire cities were disrupted as gravity fluctuated unpredictably, tearing down skyscrapers and shifting landscapes. Nations were thrown into disarray as communication systems broke down, not just on Earth, but across the colonies humanity had spread to. Yet, amid this chaos, something extraordinary began to happen. The human mind, long constrained by the limitations of biology and physics, began to transcend. The power of the Prometheus engine resonated with every human mind, triggering a cascade of evolutions, small at first, barely noticeable. People began to perceive things that shouldn't have been possible. Some could see across vast distances, as if their minds had become connected to the stars themselves. Others began to manipulate the forces of nature with nothing more than thought. Earth's population, long confined to the boundaries of their home planet, now had the potential to reach across the galaxy itself. In the midst of this transformation, Reese sat in the neural simulation cell, a prisoner of his own mind. Though he had once been humanity's most ardent skeptic, he now found himself at the center of an experiment that was more than his mind could handle. The whispers had started again. At first, they had been faint, disembodied voices speaking in an ancient tongue, but now they were louder, clearer. And terrifyingly, they spoke in a language he understood. Reese, they called, their voices echoing through his thoughts. You are the key. You must remember what came before. He clenched his teeth, trying to block out the voices, but they were relentless. The code, the symbols that had once been meaningless, now swirled around him, forming patterns that made his skin crawl. A symbol appeared before him. It was the same as before, infinity broken into 7 lines, but now it pulsed with an eerie, unnatural light, and beneath it a word. Ascension! Rice shuddered. He had no idea what it meant, but he could feel its pull, like gravity, dragging him closer to something he wasn't sure he wanted to understand. The past, his past, was being rewritten. And then, in a moment of horrific clarity, he realized the truth. Humanity was not the first to reach this threshold. They weren't even the second. They were the 1,000th. And in the vast, infinite expanse of the universe, that was the only thing that mattered. Chapter 17. Shards of Creation. As Reese battled against the breaking boundaries of his mind, Ilana and Choi continued to face the consequences of their choices. The Silex, once seen as the pinnacle of divine power, had turned against them. Their luminous forms were now corrupted, twisted by the very reality they had once controlled. Ilana had no illusions left. The Silex were not invincible. They were not gods. They were failures. And now, they had come to Earth, not to destroy, but to consume, to feed off the energy released by the Prometheus engine, to reclaim their lost power. But humanity was not helpless. Not anymore. Ilana had given humanity a chance to evolve beyond their wildest dreams. The only question now was whether they could survive long enough to understand their new place in the cosmos. We need to move quickly, Ilana said, turning to Choi as the Silex began their descent. We need to find a way to push them back, to contain them. Choi nodded grimly, his eyes scanning the data feeds. The God Killer is ready, but we don't have enough firepower. Not yet. We'll need to awaken everything humanity has now become. Ilana's face darkened. Then let's make it happen. Together they turned toward the control chamber, where the dormant power of the Prometheus engine awaited. Its hum filled the room, vibrating with a resonance that spoke of untapped potential. Chapter 18. The Reclamation. The God Killer, once a tool of destruction, was now humanity's last hope. It was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of everything humanity had become. The voices that had once spoken to Rice were now speaking to all of humanity, echoes in the minds of millions, urging them to take up their place as the new masters of the cosmos. But as Ilana prepared to launch the God Killer's final strike, she realized the truth. The universe had not just bent to humanity's will, it had evolved, and in doing so, it had given humanity a choice, one final trial. Would they become the tyrants the Silex had once been, or would they take up their mantle as the true architects of the universe? Ilana took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the activation console. The God Killer was ready. The future of the universe hung in the balance. Chapter 19. The Awakening of the Collective. The God Killer was no longer just a weapon. It was the spark that ignited something far greater, a collective consciousness that spread through the vast expanse of humanity. The Prometheus engine's influence reached far beyond the boundaries of Earth, and its power stirred something deep within the human psyche. It began to awaken the latent potential buried within each individual, unlocking abilities that had once seemed impossible. The whispers from the deep code had now become a symphony, a harmonious collective hum that resonated with every human being. No longer were they isolated, bound by their biology and their fragile minds. Humanity had transcended. Each person, across every corner of the globe, now felt the pull of the unified mind, a vast network of thought, instinct, and emotion that wove them together in ways that transcended the boundaries of individuality. Ilana felt it first, the subtle shift in her awareness. It wasn't just the immediate vicinity that she could perceive anymore, but everything. Every person. Every thought. Every emotion. It was as if her mind had stretched out, becoming one with the collective whole. Can you feel it? Choi asked, his voice distant but clear, though he was standing right beside her. Ilana nodded slowly, the realization dawning on her that the boundaries between individuals were no more. The power was not just in the Prometheus engine, not just in the God Killer, but in the combined will of all humanity, unified for the first time. The universe is ours, Ilana whispered, her eyes scanning the view of the cosmos from the bridge. We can reshape it. Chapter 20. The Battle for the Threshold. The Silex, now twisted versions of their former selves, had descended upon Earth in an attempt to seize control of the power that humanity had unlocked. They were beings of raw, unfathomable energy, but their strength was not enough to match the growing force within the collective human mind. They were, as the architects had once stated, failures, beings who had failed to evolve beyond their own limitations. Now, the Silex sought to consume what humanity had unlocked, to reclaim the power they had once lost. They had descended upon the earth like a storm, their bodies rippling with the energy of 1,000 dying stars, their forms shifting in and out of existence. They were gods, yes, but they were fragile gods, unable to withstand the boundless power humanity had come to command. In the distance, Alana could see the energy storms brewing. The crackling fields of pure energy that signaled the Silex were ready to unleash their final strike. The God Killer was poised to strike, its core humming with enough power to tear through the fabric of reality itself. "Are you ready?" Troy asked, his voice filled with urgency. Ilana nodded, her mind linked to the collective consciousness of humanity. The power of millions of voices echoed in her mind, each one adding to the chorus of their combined will. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to define the future of the universe. "We don't just fight to survive," Alana said, her voice steady. "We fight to ascend." The God Killer unleashed its first salvo, a burst of energy so intense that it obliterated the advancing Silex wave. But they were not defeated. Instead, the Silex reformed, their energies flickering and reshaping, growing more powerful, more determined. They were not gods in the truest sense. They were creatures of the universe, bound by the same rules that humanity was now breaking. The battle raged on, but Alana knew that the Silex's true strength lay not in their physical might, but in their minds. They were beings who had ascended once, but in doing so, they had become trapped within their own limitations. They had become tyrants, and now humanity had the chance to rewrite that story. Chapter 21: The Echoes of Ascension. As the battle with the Silex escalated, Alana and Choi found themselves at the heart of the struggle, caught between the forces of destruction and creation. The God Killer's energy was relentless, but so too were the Silex. With every passing moment, they adapted, using their godlike abilities to warp the fabric of reality around them, countering the human will that flowed through the God Killer. But something strange began to happen. The collective consciousness that had grown so strong within humanity was starting to resonate with the Silex. At first, it was a faint echo, a ripple across the fabric of existence. But soon, it became a wave, a force that connected the two sides. Humanity's thoughts, their will, were beginning to merge with the very consciousness of the Silex. For a moment, it was as if the universe itself held its breath. The lines between the two forces blurred, and for the briefest of moments, Ilana and the Silex stood on the precipice of understanding. "You don't need to fight us," a voice from within the collective consciousness whispered. It was the voice of the Silex, but not just one of them. It was all of them, merged together, speaking through the collective mind. "You can join us, ascend with us, become one with the cosmos." Ilana's mind raced. Was this an offer of peace, or a trap? The Silex were offering to merge, to become one with humanity, to transcend the boundaries of existence itself. But Ilana had seen what happened to the Silex when they embraced their godhood, when they became obsessed with dominion over all things. They had become tyrants. No, humanity could not afford to make the same mistake. "We are not your servants," Ilana replied, her voice firm, breaking through the waves of the collective mind. "We are human, and we are not afraid to rewrite the rules." The Silex recoiled, their forms flickering as the collective consciousness that had begun to form between them and humanity shattered. The balance between creation and destruction, between ascension and stagnation, teetered on the edge. It was no longer a question of who would emerge victorious. It was a question of who would define the future of the universe. And in that moment, as the God Killer's final salvo tore through the heart of the Silex, humanity made its choice. Chapter 22: The Dawn of a New Era. With the final clash, the Silex were consumed by their own power. The fabric of reality bent and broke as the energy unleashed by the God Killer collided with the very essence of the Silex. Their forms disintegrated, leaving nothing but the echoes of their existence. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. Ilana stood at the center of the chaos, her mind still buzzing with the collective consciousness that now spanned the universe. The battle had been won, but the power humanity had unleashed was far greater than anything they had ever imagined. "We've ascended," Choi said quietly, looking at Ilana. "But what now?" Ilana took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders. "Now we build." Humanity had rewritten the rules of the universe. Now it was time to reshape it, to create a future where no species, no force, no being would ever again hold dominion over others. The universe was not theirs to command, it was theirs to define. And with that, Ilana stepped forward into the unknown, ready to lead humanity into a new era, one where they would not just survive, but thrive. Chapter 23, The Infinite Choice. Humanity had ascended. The cosmic balance had been irrevocably altered, but with that change came a new set of responsibilities. The collective consciousness that now bound all of humanity together gave them unimaginable power, but with that power came the knowledge of how fragile existence truly was. Ilana gazed upon the vastness of the cosmos, her mind extending across galaxies, seeing and feeling the pulse of the universe. In this new reality, humanity was no longer limited by time or space. They could shape entire star systems, move through dimensions, and bend the very fabric of existence. But with these abilities came a question that loomed over them all. "What now?" Choi asked quietly, standing beside her on the observation deck. The stars seemed to shimmer differently, as if they too were reacting to the massive shift in the fabric of the universe. Ilana took a deep breath, her mind still buzzing with the voices of billions. "We build, we guide the universe into a new era. But we do it carefully. We learned the price of unchecked power." It was the choice they had made, the choice to never become like the Silex, never to allow themselves to become tyrants who controlled reality to their whims. Humanity had ascended, but they would not let themselves be corrupted by that power. They would be its stewards, not its masters. But as she looked out at the stars, a dark thought crept into her mind. The Prometheus engine had unlocked so much, so quickly. And though they had ascended, they could not ignore what they had unleashed. Chapter 24, The Council's Return. From beyond the veil of reality, something stirred. The architects, the Council, had watched as humanity broke the chains of their creation. They had kept their distance for millennia, observing from the shadows, but now, as the new reality took shape, they could no longer ignore the potential threat humanity posed to their carefully constructed order. Ilana had always believed that the architects were the ultimate force in the universe, beings who had engineered the cosmic cycle that had controlled existence for eons. But as she reached out into the fabric of reality, she felt them, like ripples in the void, subtle and insidious. They were preparing to make their move. Choi noticed her shift in demeanor. "What's wrong?" "They're coming," Ilana said, her voice cold. "The architects. They've been watching, waiting. And they won't let us have this power. Not without a fight." Suddenly, the room's lights flickered, and the hum of the collective consciousness grew louder, more insistent. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. The architects had arrived. A massive figure materialized before them, its form shifting through various geometric shapes, too complex for the human mind to fully comprehend. It was one of them, the architects. Its presence was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a being who existed on a plane beyond human understanding. "You have broken the cycle," it said, its voice like the sound of 1,000 planets collapsing. "You have broken the laws that govern this universe. And for that, you will be judged." Ilana stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "We've rewritten the laws because the old ones were flawed. We're not your prisoners anymore. We've evolved." The architect's form shimmered. "You do not understand. You cannot evolve beyond the boundaries we have set. We are the creators of the cycle, and the cycle must continue." Chapter 25, The Reckoning. The moment the architect spoke, the universe seemed to tremble. The collective consciousness that had once united humanity began to splinter, as though the very fabric of reality was unraveling in response to the Council's presence. You cannot control what you have unleashed, the architect continued, its voice full of cold certainty. You may have ascended, but you are not the first. You are not the last. Alana's heart pounded in her chest as she realized the full implications of the architect's words. There had been others before humanity, other civilizations who had ascended and then fallen. The cycle that the architect spoke of was not just a creation, it was a mechanism, a force that had been set in motion long before humanity had come into existence. The battle was no longer just for survival, it was a fight for the future of the universe itself. We are not your pawns, Alana said, her voice steady despite the overwhelming presence of the architect. We are humanity, and we will rewrite this cycle. We are the final step. We won't let you control us anymore. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the architect's form began to distort, flickering like a dying star. You think you can defeat us? It asked, its voice becoming distorted, like a warning of a storm about to hit. You cannot even comprehend the consequences of your actions. Alana's mind reached out, connecting with the collective. The power surged within her, and for a brief moment, she could see the entire universe, every thread of reality, every potential outcome, all laid out before her. And she understood the cycle had been broken, but the cost would be higher than they ever imagined. Chapter 26, The Final Choice. As the architects prepared to unleash their wrath upon humanity, Alana made the ultimate decision. She would use the collective consciousness, the very force that had given humanity its power, to collapse the cycle entirely. She would sever the link between the architects and the universe they had created, but doing so would come at an unimaginable cost. We can end this, she said, turning to Choi, but we'll have to sacrifice everything we've become. The universe will no longer follow the cycle. It will be free. Choi looked at her, his face filled with a mix of fear and resolve. You mean we'll lose everything? Our powers? The collective? Alana nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of the choice. Yes, but it's the only way. Together, they activated the final protocol, the reclamation protocol. The energy that flowed through the collective surged one last time, and Alana felt herself being pulled into the heart of the universe, where the fabric of reality itself began to unravel. The architects screamed as their grip on the universe began to slip, but it was too late. The cycle had ended. Epilogue, the new beginning. When Alana opened her eyes, she found herself standing on Earth, alone. The collective consciousness had fractured. The bond between humanity and the stars was broken. The universe was vast again, wild, untamed. But it was free. Humanity had won. They had broken the cycle, but the cost had been high. They had lost their connection to the infinite power they had once wielded, and with it, they had lost the ability to shape reality with a thought. Yet, in the quiet of the new dawn, Ilana felt a strange peace. The universe was no longer bound by the cycle of creation, rebellion, and destruction. It was free to evolve on its own terms, and so too were they. Humanity had ascended, not to become gods, but to become something more, the true architects of their own destiny. And so, the story of the universe continued, no longer shaped by the hands of the architects, but by the will of those who dared to break the cycle and define their own future. The end.